Disasterpiece-Rise of the Obsidian Interstellar versus Dewa, Alit, and Gamelan Salukat-Chasing the Phantom. Disasterpiece is an unbelievably well-crafted chiptune album. And if you've never heard of chiptune music before, it's a style of music that uses 8-bit video game sounds as the basis for the sounds used in the music. Originally, chiptune artists were using like hacked Nintendos and Game Boys to compose all the music, but since then people have expanded on that and used other kinds of mediums, but still using these basic sounds that you would have heard in a video game you played in the early 90s as its compositional palette. And Rise of the Obsidian Interstellar is one of the most fantastic examples of this style of music that I've heard ever so far. It's a concept album that's supposed to kind of trace interstellar travel somewhere. It's not really that specific about its meaning, but it's supposed to get this idea if you're flying through space on some sort of mission. And it really does capture that very, very well. And especially with the kind of sounds that we're talking about, which are often associated with science fiction video games, it fits great. So let's take a look at Rise of the Obsidian Interstellar versus this traditional gamelan style that you'll find on Chasing the Phantom. Even though this is traditional gamelan music, it's actually a very contemporary iteration of that. It does some innovations in particular with the melodic compositional aspects of the songs, as well as the tuning. And the second was the one that's really most important, I think, because I've heard other gamelan do things melodically that are different than tradition. It's a little bit different. But the tuning here is innovative because one of the biggest constraints, especially to the Western ear about gamelan, is that it uses two different scales, a 5-note scale or a 7-note scale. And this is a little bit limiting to Western ears to get your ears wrapped around. It starts to feel a little bit monotonous. But Dewa Alit on this album kind of combines the two into a novel tuning that opens up some new possibilities and gives it a little bit different melodic contour than a lot of other more traditional gamelan recordings. But even though this is kind of a big innovation as far as gamelan music goes, the playing style is very traditional. It doesn't innovate by trying to cross over and do something else. It burrows a little bit deeper into the style. And that's what you have to look at when you're comparing these two pieces and you're trying to figure out which one you really want to go with. Because both Disasterpiece and this Gamelan Salukat album are trying to preserve and innovate within their given styles. For example, Disasterpiece is trying to preserve those sounds of 8-bit video games, but also innovate and make more complicated compositions than maybe had ever been conceived of before. Similarly, there's no real effort on the part of Gamelan Salukat here to change what gamelan is, but instead innovate within that style. So in both of these albums are equally innovative in their own respective ways. But for me personally, I really am attracted to the physicality of gamelan playing. The technique that's exhibited on this album is just unbelievable. And of course, there is technique to composition as well, but you got to respect the player in order to respect the game. So I'm going to have to go with this Chasing the Phantom this time around. So